with their help, with their cell phone, I'm able to see inside their home and still do an initiative, an assessment of the home, which I even like a little more, I like better, simply because now you get a video of real time, you get still shots and the recommendations under each picture. So it makes it a, what they say, a picture is, describes is better than 1,000 words. So what actually takes place when you have the picture and along with the video and the instructions or the information, it just makes it more rememberable to do. So what we want to do, first of all, we're going to jump in there, and normally I would be in front of you in a sense to where I can hear your response, and I would ask questions, but I'm going to just kind of ask the question and answer too at the same time. So first of all, the question would be, what is the most energy consumption that's in the home? And I don't know if someone has the ability to shout out an answer or what, but if so, that's all good. If not, heating and air is number one. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was saying HVAC. Yeah, heating air.
Yes, very good. Very good. Now, an HVAC is 50% of your utility bill. Now, most people don't think about that, but 50% of your utility bill is generated from your HVAC. For that reason, it's very important that your unit be operating properly. That means having it tuned up twice a year, whether during the fall and then the springtime or the summer, or whatever. You want it operating correctly. Now, there are several different types of HVAC, which one in particular that I want to mention is what we call a heat pump. Now, a heat pump is one of those that has a reversing valve, so that will it's the most economic for this area that we live in. Now, you can tell if you got a heat pump over a central heating and air unit simply by when you look at your thermostat, it will have what we call an emergency heat. So on your thermostat, if you have heat, cool, emergency heat, then unless it's the wrong thermostat, then your operating system is a heat pump. Also, if you were to look outside through the condenser, that fan unit, and look inside, you will see what we call a reversing valve. It would be a valve that has one tube going into the top of it and two coming out of the bottom. Now, why is that important? It's very important because during these hot months, that air conditioner will run, and it will cost you a fortune. So it's very critical that you set your thermostat at a proper setting. I like to tell people a thermostat is like putting cruise control on a car. I mean, if you were going to take a trip to Atlanta, you can set your cruise control and you'll still get to Atlanta and save gas. But if you were to just drive it where the way Atlanta traffic is, accelerating, stopping, well, you'll get there, hopefully, but you'll use more gas. Likewise, with a heating and air unit, if you're running your thermostat up and down, then it's going to cause it to generate more and cost you more money. Now, so therefore, it's good to find a happy medium. I mean, to set it and leave it. Now, a lot of people say, well, I cut mine off. Well, that's not the right answer, because when you turn it off, you're not the only thing or the only one that's getting hot or warm. So that means the walls, the furniture, everything in that house. So when you cut it on, it has to run longer to bring everything to that condition, because two things never change. And so there's two things in every home. The two things is this: hot always goes to cold and wet always goes to dry. There's no in between. The moment you quit heating it, it cools down. The moment you quit wetting it, it dries. So here we have this transition of the temperature outside versus the temperature inside constantly changing. And so to save money, and especially during this time where even though some people are starting to go back to work, it's still several of us are still working from home. And when we work from home, that means that our unit to where we've been used to it being lower or to where we didn't run it as much because us being gone to work, that's not the case anymore. We're at home, we're active, our lights are on, uh, our unit is running, we're moving about in the home. So even now, it's more important to be conscientious of your utility bill. Okay? Now, we're getting ready to get what I call a false statement. And I call it a false statement is because our sweet spot will even be better because we're going to get to that transitioning where it's not so hot to where you have to run your air, but it's not that cold where you have to cut on heat. So we're going into that transition of that sweet place where our utility bill, we don't worry about it so much, but bad habits are hard to break. And if we don't adjust, then when it's time for the heat to kick in, it's going to cost us, just like during the summer months when it's time for the air. So, with that being said, the way to save money, first of all, is to have your heating and air unit operating properly. Now, I mentioned tuning it up. Well, another thing that is important to do is make sure you change your air filter. Now, an air filter, if you have pets that live in the house, because some people are just animal lovers, and when you have a pet that lives in the house, then you need to buy the cheapest air filter that's out there, and you need to change it once a month. So every month you need to swap it because of the extra hair and everything. Now, if you have a home that does not have an animal living on the inside, well, it's okay to take a filter and allow it to last, change it once every 3 months. Is that clear? So without an animal in the house, your air filter is good for 3 months. If you have an animal that lives in, then Fido, well, then you're going to have to change the filter once a month. Okay? Now, also buying those air filters that's for people that have allergy problems and all that stuff, those real thick filters, uh, it's a kind of like a balancing act because that will weigh on your unit operating too. It will cause you, it's like going uphill, it takes a little more energy to get the air through. Now, while we're talking about a heating and air unit, one of the units we want to make sure, whenever you purchase a unit, you want to look at the SEER rating because that's saving dollars. So right now, if you had a package unit, and a package unit is where everything is outside, you got that big hole with the duct that penetrates the rain guard, the rain shield that runs through the wall. If you have a package unit, then what we require for energy efficient is a 14 SEER. Now, if it's a split unit, which means half of it is outside, the condenser, and then you might have the other part in your crawl space, your basement, or even in an attic. That's called a split unit. Well, if you're operating a split unit, then you need to get at least a 14.5 SEER. So that's what is energy efficient. That is what's going to save you money. So Energy Star heating and air unit, a heat pump, keeping it maintenance, tuned up, and changing your air filters, and that will make a big difference and put more money back in your pocket. Okay? Now, so we talked about the heating and air. We talked about setting the thermostat. Ideally is a programmable, a digital thermostat. A Nest or let's see, they have another one out now that I'm really favoring. Just slipped my mind, but a digital thermostat is ideal. okay? Plus you can set it from your phone. All right, the next thing then, if heating and air is 50%, and it's very important to have that operating correctly, what would be the next thing that would be on the totem pole?
Okay, guys, if you want to just answer that and put it in the chat, and I'll help Ron out with giving you some answers to that question, Ron.
Thank you, brother.
Okay, so Shantae Borking says refrigerator. J.R. Peterson says lightning.
Nope, nope,
Lighting.
nope,
I'm sorry, I said lightning. Lighting.
nope, nope, nope. No, we're talking about heating and air is number one. Number two is very important. Hint, hint,
Hot water.
no, hint.
The only thing I can say is to give you guys a hint is look at the DSC.
Yay!
Sister,
We
yes.
got it. Great. Now we're on track. I mean, what good is it to have your heating and air unit operating properly if you can't get the air from point A to point B? So secondly, to save that money, see, you can go out and purchase a new heating and air unit, and it could just run all day long. Why? Because the air is blowing in your crawl space or it's blowing in the attic, and it's heating those places that you're not living in. See, the house is divided into two places we call conditioned space and unconditioned. Conditioned is where you live. Unconditioned is like a garage, it's a crawl space, it's any place that you don't have, that you don't condition it. You don't have ductwork to heat it and cool, or I should say a vent, okay? Now, one of the things I left off on that heating and air is if you want to say, well, is my unit operating properly? You can easily find out with two thermostats. If you put one, or thermometer, I should say, you put one at the return where the air filter go, and you take the second one and you put it on the return, on the registers, on the vent. Now, the air going in, being processed and blowing out, then you should have a 15 to 20 degree difference in temperature. So if you're looking at, and that air is going in at 60 degrees and you're on air, so it's supposed to be 15 degrees cooler, okay? And if that air coming out at that register at 65, where, or in that case 55, then you know it's only 5 degrees, and that's not good, okay? And those things would end up being low on Freon, some of the telltale signs, or your unit just not operating properly, okay? Now, so back to the ductwork. Now, so we talk about number two is your ductwork. And in this ductwork, I have right here, if you was here, you could see that on this vent, if you plug these up, and the ones that doesn't have mastic on it, or what we call duct butter, it loses air all through there. So the air escapes and it's going wherever your ducts are running. So the proper way is to put what we call mastic. That's this white stuff you see that you take a paintbrush and you paint it on. And or you can use some mastic tape. Now, not foil tape or not regular duct tape, because that's not good. Because of the adhesiveness, the glue on back of the tape is only good for about 3 to 4 years because of the condensation. So that moisture, it gets wet and it breaks down the glue, and then your tape is just flapping in the wind. So it's very important to have your duct sealed, because if you can't get the air from point A to point B, you're already losing money, okay? Now, so that's number two. Heating and air, number one. Ductwork, number two. What you think, what would number three be? Now we're talking about high dollars now. We ain't getting to the little small stuff yet. So after let Kevin tell me what's going on.
Okay. Let's see. We're still waiting. JR looked like he has something on his mind.
Number three.
Let's see. Leandra says electric lights from Lawson, Carol Lawson.
No, Carrie Lawson.
Carrie Lawson says lights.
No, lights is not it.
All right,
Way down the list.
JR said window sills.
Way down the list. Way down the list.
Those are some good guesses, though.
Well, a little hint. What did we see?
Can you guess that, Shante?
I mean, it's insulation, so.
That's it. You got it.
I'm telling you, if we were here in person, I have a goodie bag. You would have won a goodie bag. You would, right there. That would have been a deck of cards. We have cards that have energy hints on them that they tell you how long to take a shower, what to set your temperature on the water heater, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so let's talk about what this right answer that you got. So heating and air is number one. Ductwork is number two. Now this is the totem pole. The next one is insulation. Now, when you don't have the proper insulation in your home, it's like laying in bed on top of the covers. I mean, you got the fluff, but it's not benefiting you. So there's three different types of insulation, okay? Now, the first one is fiberglass. Now, we recommend for it to be energy efficient, for that to save on that utility bill. Your insulation needs to be R38. That's the resistant. That's the R value, R38. Okay? But here it is. With fiberglass, which is the cheapest, it takes 14 inches to equal that R38. Cellulose, which is more thicker and compressed, it only takes 9 inches. And then, of course, the spray foam, it only takes 4 inches. Now, if you were here again with this demo that I have, when you plug it up, there's a little tennis ball right here at the top. And, well, it's not a tennis ball, a little sponge ball. And what happens is when I plug it up, there's a light bulb right here that generates the heat, like if it was the sun shining in or the heat in your house. And it shows that this little sponge ball through fiberglass will float all the way up to the top because it insulates, but it doesn't air seal. Now there's a difference. It's like going outside on a cold day. You can put a coat on to insulate yourself, but that air is still blowing and you get a chill, okay? Now, the biggest bang for the buck is the cellulose. That's the good stuff. It right there, that foam ball would just kind of vibrate a little bit, just shake, because it's air sealing and insulating, okay? And then, of course, the Mercedes is the spray foam, but you got to have some deep pockets to do that. I mean, because that's very expensive. And if you were going to use spray foam, the condition or the environment should be something like in an attic that you had like a 12-foot ceiling. You know, not one of those that you just have to stoop over and crawl in, because this foam raises the R value, so that actually makes that attic like a conditioned space. Your attic would be the same temperature as pretty much as your home. So unless you was using that as a bonus room or, you know, a place like that, then, and you got the money, the spray foam would be my first selection, but the cellulose would be my first choice. Now, mind you though, an attic is not a walk-in closet. So everybody that's storing stuff up in their attic, I could save them some steps. All they have to do is just cut the oven on and just store it in the oven. You're going to get the same results. It's going to dry everything up, going to make everything brittle. So those Christmas and those boxes, it's a waste of time, okay? An attic is not a walk-in closet. So if you have one of those attics that's just a normal attic, you can just put the fiberglass in, and you can use the batted or the blown, but it needs to be equivalent to 14 inches, and you shut it and let it go, okay? And that'll do its job. It's like putting the cap on. Also, access to the attic, which is going to be the answer to the next one, is if your attic access is not insulated, then that air is still penetrating through the opening. It's like opening up a window. So even the access, that board needs to be weather stripped and insulated. So around the frame of it, it needs to have weather stripping. And on top of the board itself, it needs to be equivalent to like some 2.5-inch styrofoam. Now, if you have one of those pull down attic stairwells, then you can buy or purchase what we call an attic tent. And it's actually an insulated covering that fits right over the top, and it seals that opening. Now, a killer in an attic that most people don't think about is if your home has a whole house fan. That's one of those when you see the louvers and the vents up in the ceiling that people only use about once a year because during the summer you got so much pollen you can't cut it on, and during the winter all your heat will go out. So if you have one of those in, we recommend that you cover it up, okay? Seal it. So attic insulation is number 3 on the list, okay? Now we're going to get easy. So what's next?
So we have a rolling poll. Let's go back to the chat room and see who can come up with what is next. Let's see. Oh, windows. Window seal?
Nope. Nope.
No. Let's see.
Hint.
Door thresholds. Wall section. Great job, Jacob.
Okay. So we're speeding the process up because, man, 30 minutes is not long at all. All right. Here's what we're talking about. I hinted to it on the last sentence when I talked about the attic insulation that you had to seal the access. So your next big cost efficiency is called air sealing. That's all the penetrations in your house. So when you start going around adding up all the holes you got in your house, that equals up to one big old open door. So access to the attic, your plumbing pipes coming up through the floor, especially around a tub. If you have a jet tub or a whirlpool tub or even just a regular tub, when that plumber puts his pipes in, he's not worried about how small he got to cut that hole. He's cutting that hole where he can get his hands up under there. He's already up under the house, and he's going to cut that hole big enough till he can put that pipe on there easy for him. So that is a big penetration that you have to seal. And you seal those things with, and let's see, can I get a shot of it? Down at the bottom, it says expandable foam. It's called Great Stuff. Now, those little orange ribbons you see, if all these, you can plug them up. what would happen is you take the covers off, and they call air stoppers, and you pull your cover off and you put a gasket on there and put your cover back on. All your outlets that's on your exterior walls, I'm talking about the walls that on the other side of the wall is the outside, not the interior, but the outside, exterior walls, they need to be sealed. Otherwise, air will be coming through, and if this was plugged up, you would see the difference. One represents having the gasket, and this is not moving. The other one would be blowing in the wind, and that's how showing the indication of air coming through. So, heating and air, ductwork, attic insulation, and air seal, because you got a lot of holes. That includes now window seals, around the window seals, caulking missing. That includes the door. If you can go to your door and you see daylight down the side, that's like $1 a day. So weather stripping, that's important. Okay, a door sweep right across the bottom. If you have, most of the time, a door going into the garage is just an interior door. So there again, you would want to buy you some of that Pink Panther or some 2.5-inch styrofoam and put it, glue it, adhesive, liquid nail, screw it to the back of that door so you can raise it up, because an exterior door is very expensive. And when you can't amputate, at least stop the bleeding. Okay? So that foam is a $20 fix over a $1,200 fix. Okay? So air sealing. All right, 28 minutes. This ain't right. Last, but the next thing is because we use so many, and that is light bulbs. Okay? LED light bulbs. Because, and I should have plugged these up, but anyway, an incandescent bulb is 90% heat, 10% light, and less than 1 minute, it's over 200 degrees. That's an easy bake oven. Now, the LED bulbs, all 4 of these bulbs burn less than this bulb right here. For instance, I can burn 6 LED bulbs all day long, and they will use less energy than this one incandescent bulb burning for an hour. Plus, the LED bulbs are good for 20 years. I mean, you can even bounce them. I got to learn how to catch, but you can't bounce them. And they're still good for 20 years. Okay? If I had my card right here, I would plug it up to show you. But for the sake of time, now, this right here, the spiral, is called a CFL, compact fluorescent. Get rid of them. I put it there just to let you know those have mercury in them, and that is not safe. So you want to get rid of your spiral, even though we used to say, hey, that's the next best thing when we left incandescents. But now we are more knowledgeable and aware, so you want to get rid of the CFLs, compact fluorescent, and then you go with the LEDs, okay? Now, we've covered all your majors. Now, once you do that, then you start looking at the little pocket change, which adds up. For instance, a hot water heater. Give me a real quickly. What is the setting temperature for a hot water heater? What temperature?
120. We have 128.
120 is correct.
Yep.
120 is the perfect setting for your hot water heater. Now, but here's what the mistake is. The 2 lines coming off the top of the hot water heater, a lot of times we don't insulate them. And remember the first statement, hot always goes to cold, wet always goes to dry. So if you don't insulate those 2 lines on top of the hot water heater, as that heat rises, it dissipates through those pipes, and it costs you roughly about $10 a month on the loss of energy. Because every time that dissipates, that element has to kick back on and heat that water back up again. Okay? So insulate the lines on your hot water heater. Now, Do you insulate both lines, the hot water and the cold water? What was the answer?
Well, I see some no's. I see some I don't knows. Shantae says yes, you do both. Ms. Lawson says no.
Okay. All right, here it is. The hot water heater does not care whether it's the cold water line or the hot water line. It's looking for a place for the heat to dissipate. So yes, you have to insulate both lines. Okay? Both lines. Because even if your cold water line, if you put your hand on it, you're going to feel it warm because the heat going to be escaping and heating up what the cold water coming in. Okay? Now, lastly, and this is going to be it, and we'll open up for questions. You know how when you get a new refrigerator, you just can't part with that old refrigerator? And we call it a beer fridge or the catch-all that we want to put out there in the garage. Well, I want you to know that that old fridge that's half empty is using more energy than if you were just to get rid of it and just buy you a little $200 energy efficient fridge. Okay? Because that old one, the Freon in it, probably half of it leaked out. It's the gasket material around the door is probably done wore out, and you're sitting it in a heated environment that's not conditioned. So all it's doing is just constantly trying to fight against the environment. Okay? Now, one thing, in your crawl space, it's not necessary to have insulation in the floor, but it is very important to have plastic on the ground. It's called a vapor barrier, and it needs to be a 6 mil vapor barrier. Okay? Now, I talked for 33 minutes. Now, what questions do you have for Kevin and me? Oh, and if you're interested in getting the E-score, all you have to do is call EPB and say, I want to get an E-score. And you will see yours truly, and we will do a walkthrough through your home. I will be the one.
Yeah. Now, Ron, just a quick question. How much does it cost to get an E-score?
It's free.
Ah.
An E-score is free. Now, for those who are wanting to wait to after the COVID, we can still do a virtue audit, and you can have that record. And then later on, if you want me to still come in person, I can do that. It's ideal for you to be able to point out those things because each home is individual. And it has its own perks. Or it can have some good bones or some good meat, but you know, there's some skeletons in the closet. Yeah. You know, and the windows and doors, I know we didn't talk much about it, but normally windows and doors are last on my list, but they can move up the totem pole. A lot of time people get the windows for the aesthetics. It makes their house look good. But you know, we grow up before we grow out. That's why I'm sitting down, because if I stood up, you see I've grown out. So anyway, that pressure before it goes out, it has to have it really is not putting that pressure there until you got that proper insulation and it's not able to escape. Now, we're in zone 4. So that means you can wear a long sleeve shirt today and then shorts tomorrow. You know, our seasons change very regular. So you don't have to buy those triple, double pane windows. Now, we do recommend a double pane low E, but if you get in place of, here's where windows would move up the totem pole. If you got single pane, aluminum frame, if it's wood and it's cracked and it's leaking, But if you got a storm window, then work on those other 4 things first before you start working on windows. And when you, because windows are the most expensive, probably. And when you do windows, you don't have to do them all. Start with the room you spend the most time in. Or start with the room where the sun comes up and heats up the house. And in that place, you can get film or some dark blackout curtains, and that would help save. Okay, any questions?
Okay, JR says, I just moved to Chattanooga. Are there any good advantages to installing solar?
Well, that answer is a yes and a no. Okay, this is all about going green. And so right now, here in Chattanooga, you can purchase solar panels from us and save $4 or $5 a panel. So it just slipped my mind, a piece. And you're not under, but here's the thing. Yes, $5 a piece. So you can purchase solar panels, $5 a piece from us. And the advantage is this. Here's the pros and the cons. Number one, you don't have that initial large spend out to set it up. Number two, you don't have the maintenance of keeping them clean. And number three, you don't have to worry about these vegetation that's coming in and removing trees and everything so you can get the most out of the sun. Those 3 things are great. You don't plug and play pretty much, turnkey. All right. In that case, versus doing it a different way. Now, but the drawback is because of our rainy season and what's been happening, the solar panels only been generating $4 worth of energy. So you're paying $5 for a panel, but it's only generating $4, and that's on a good week when you got the sun every day. Okay? An overcast, it cuts back on that. So if you're the one that loves the environment and go green, and hey, then yes, go ahead and get you a solar panel. But for economical status, or we should say for the cost effectiveness, right now the government dropped the cost on it, so it's not as effective. Okay, does it make any sense? Is that clear?
Yep. And also with solar panels, I know when they first came out, they were very, very expensive. Now, if you look at solar panels, the cost of the solar panels are a lot cheaper than they were, even 4 years ago. And a lot of people are wanting to buy the solar panels that move with the sun, but you don't actually need that. If you get them that are stationary, it'll be the same cost effectiveness as the ones that cost more that move and follow the sun. Just piggybacking off of what Ron was saying earlier is that, here in our area, the rain season seems like it's about 7 or 8 months a year, for us. So we have a lot of clouds. So it would be very cost effective to go out and spend that much money to install solar panels on your home.
And don't forget, you run your roof warranty, your shingles, okay? Because they don't want to honor that warranty once you mount them panels up there. But we do install several of them, and I go out all the time. That's one of the hats I wear here at EPB. I go out and I put a generator meter in, but mostly we do a lot of backup generators. Okay. Any others? How about ceiling fans? Go ahead. Did you have a question?
And being that we're all adults, you guys can just unmute yourself and ask your question real quickly. I know we're running very slim on time here. So
Yeah.
if you want to just unmute yourself and ask your question, then feel free.
Does EPB do like a usage tracking that you're able to see how much your usage changed? Let's say you go in and you replace or you make some upgrades. That way you could tell year over year if you're actually making improvements.
Yes, but we do. That's another hat I wear. We call that a spike report, okay? And on a spike report, it works two ways. Number one, if all of a sudden you start using more than you normally use, well, it flags us so we can call you and say, hey, look, you know, something going on right there. You're going to have a high usage this month. But we also keep a record of the highest light bill that house, I say light bill, utility bill that house ever had, and the lowest. And again, it's based off of what we call a degree day. Now, a degree day is simply this. At 50 degrees, we break even. But at 51 degrees, we charge you at the rate of cooling. At 49 degrees, we charge you at the rate of heating. So we look at in the month how many times the temperature changed from 50 degrees. And that's what keeps it fair across the board for everybody to pay the same. So on high bill report, you can always call and find that information. Plus, you can download my EPB app and see that on your phone yourself. It will give you outages whenever there's an outage somewhere. You can see how many people out of power, what truck is en route, how many people come back up, and you can even watch your kilowatt usage hour by hour.
Yes, and that's how some people pinpoint whether they have a bad refrigerator or a bad unit, HV unit, or a bad stove. If they see that spike in or increase in their power usage. So that My EPB app is a very useful tool that you can have right there at your fingertips. Well, I think that's about all the time we have.
Ask the hard question.
Yeah, we have about like 9 more minutes until the class is officially over. So,
Oh,
well, that's
cool.
even better.
yeah.
Yeah. So 9 minutes then. Look, how can you save the most money? That's what this is all about, saving money. And the more money you do not have to pay us, the more money that's in your pocket. Now that sounds ironic. Why does a utility company offer training and classes and programs for you to spend less? Because that's the type of company we are. We're community oriented. And there are several programs I'm going to make mention right quick. One of them is called HEU, Home Energy Upgrade. The HEU program is the same, like in a sense, like the eScore program, but the difference is it's geared toward low income. And we actually purchase and pay for everything. Well, joint ventures with partners. But so if you're like a low income, then you can get from us a heat pump, windows and doors, attic insulation, etc. Those same things. So that's called the HEU program. So that is going on also. Now, I still need to come out and look and see what you actually need, and so that we'll know. Okay? We also have a program called the Smart Bill. Now the law has been paid. If you build a new home, before they will turn the power on, you have to have what we call a blower door and a duct blaster test. I do those things too. Now, that means that you would, if you went through the smart bill, then it's free at the end of the service stuff. And this doesn't cost you anything. None of these programs cost you. But if you go through the smart bill, when it's time to get the power turned on, it won't cost you anything for the blower door and the duct blaster. If you don't go through the smart bill and you need to get your power cut on, then it's going to cost you $200 for us to come out and do the blower door and the duct blaster. And if it don't pass, it's $50 every time we come back. And you cannot get a CO, certificate of occupancy, without that. Okay? Now, and the beauty about the smart bill is we walk alongside periodically checking as your home is being built. So if we see the plumber cut a large hole, we get them to fill that in. If the electrician drill a hole and decide to move the wire over here, we make sure that's caulked and sealed. We make sure you have the right amount attic insulation. So you don't have to know. We make sure your ducts are sealed properly. So smart build program, if you're building a new home, HEU, if it's someone on low income, E-score, if you just want to make your home more energy efficient. High bill, if you're just curious why your bill costs so much, Spike report is us calling you, and 2 minutes after your power go off, it automatically generates a trouble call and we roll a truck. Any questions?
So what's the difference between the old digital meter, or the old meter with a little spinning thing in it, compared to the new smart meter?
Well, the digital meter, first of all, we had to give you the benefit of the doubt. It was the clock dial. So it wasn't really accurate in a sense, like it was in your behalf, just to be honest with you. So like if the clock was ticking around and say on a scale of 1 to 10, and it had got to 9 3/4, just a quarter from being 10. Well, we couldn't bill you for 10. We would have to round it back to 9. Okay? So it was kind of like lost revenue. So because everybody, we erred on the side of us instead of the customer. So if your bill would have been $50, it was $48. The smart grid has recovered that lost revenue because it's accurate, and we read your meter every 15 minutes. If you go outside and look at your meter, you'll see it go 0, blank, and then the numbers. We read it every 15 minutes, so it's accurate. Plus, if your power do go off, we don't have to worry about you trying to call in. Like I said, it automatically generates a trouble call. It calls in for you. And it also has the capability that it can say, well, we can backfeed the power from over here and get you back up sooner. So the less amount of time of you being without power.
Yes, and what Ron means with that is that we have what we call interrupters on the grid and on power poles. And what it does, it redirects power from, like say, if you have a substation that's gone down, we can redirect power in some cases from a different substation to power up your neighborhood. Whereas back 10, 12 years ago, you have to wait hours for us to get somebody to go out there, find out what the issue is, and then come back, and then we had to roll a truck out to that position to start fixing it. With the smart grid and with the smart meters, it gives us an automatic update, and in some cases we can redirect power to get your power turned back on. Just to give you an example, on days when we have storms, and every now and then your lights may just go off and then they pop right back on, a few seconds later. That's the smart grid working in communications with the switches that we have in the field to get into making sure that we're keeping power on and to our customers.
We also, for customers that are on have ventilators or different things, sometimes we even furnish generators for them temporarily for them to, get through the time while the power is off. Or if you have a loved one or someone elderly that is on a ventilator or something like that, you can call EPB and let them know. Of course, I think it takes a doctor's statement too, and we will put that on the record. Therefore, you won't get disconnected.
Awesome. Well,
I'm not saying don't
thank
pay
you
your bill.
guys so much. That's all the time we have. So yeah, that was super great information, and I feel like everyone enjoyed it. But really quick before you guys leave the meeting, I'm going to send a poll. So it should pop up on your screen if you wouldn't mind just taking that really quick, just so we can get some feedback for Virtual Money School, since this is the first time we've ever done this. Just let us know what you thought, and then after that, you'll be good to go.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So thank you, everyone. So it's going to be a poll, like a survey that's popping up.
Yeah, it pops up on your, like, the little menu bar at the bottom, I think, if it doesn't pop up right directly to your screen.
Okay. Do you see it, Kevin? I guess
Yes,
he's
I see it. Yes, I see. I'm filling it out right now.
What? So you see my weak link, don't you?
Well, since you're the instructor for the class, you don't have to fill it out unless you just want to.
Well, I don't know what to look for.
Well, I don't know what it looks like, not on my end, if I'm being honest.
That's okay, Ron. I got you.
All right.
Okay, bro.
I
Appreciate
think everyone's taking it now. So I'm going to send it.
Good job, gentlemen. Thank you so much for sharing.
Oh,
And
thank you.
Thank you guys for joining us on this. I'm a first timer as well, so I learned a lot, and I always learn a lot from Ron. I started off in field services with Ron about 11 and a half, 12 years ago. So it's always been a pleasure to work with somebody that has as much knowledge as him.
Yeah.
One more thing before you shut him down. Kevin is just being modest. He is Professor Gigawatt. He was going to the schools. I mean, he make your hair stand up on your head. He put your fingers in the sand. I mean, he is awesome in his little get up. I'm surprised he don't have the little outfit on.
That's a little too hot.
His lab coat. All right.
Awesome.
So just, if we can be of any service, please let us know, okay?
Yeah.
Great. Thanks
you
so
need
much,
anything,
guys.
Yeah.
Have a great rest of your weekend, or I guess start of your weekend.
You too, Brooke, and congratulations on your position again, and thank you for it.
Of course, I appreciate it. All right, see you guys
Okay.
later.
All right, bye.
Okay, call us, Brooke. All right,
Bye.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.